up, folks? How are you? And yes, Real Madrid, huge win, huge step forward, maybe a half a step forward in their aspirations to win a 16th Champions League. They win 2-1 over Atletico Madrid. They played good enough against Atletico Madrid, but it was mostly the start and the opportune play that end up making the difference. Based on opportune play, based on a quick start, and based on finding not just precise moments, but precise areas where they had to attack, that's what ended up making the difference. There was a great shot that I was watching of where Diego Simeone was complaining about what was going on defensively because Javi Galan was getting roasted. He was absolutely getting beat those first 10, 15 minutes by Rodrigo on the right side. On Rodrigo's right, on Atleti's left. There was a lot of issues that were going on, and I had to mention that. I mean, it was things that I was writing in my notes here that were very apparent. Javi Galan is different going forward than he is going backward. I'll mention the other part in just a minute. He drops back. He really doesn't know how to position himself, and there's where Rodrigo says, okay, fine, I can take advantage of cutting inside. And then when the relay comes in just a tad late, he's able to position himself for his left foot, curl that ball wide of Jan Oblak to make it 1-0. At that point, you saw Madrid kind of going forward, understanding what they needed to do, and Atleti, and then, of course, every single time they find themselves in that position, they end up shelling up. They end up defensively being able to close the opposition off better. That doesn't necessarily mean that they were effective in other facets of play. They weren't. So much so because Real Madrid were closing a lot of angles. They were closing a lot of spaces. They weren't able to send the ball through to anyone in the midfield. They weren't able to activate players like Rodrigo de Paul at that stage of the game. They'd have to go for the long ball, looking for Antoine Griezmann, looking for Julian Alvarez, seeing who they could find, kind of like a deep ball, win a second ball, seeing what can happen. Things of that nature that weren't helping out because Madrid were so well positioned at that moment in that context. But around the, I want to say 25th, maybe 26th, 27th minute even, Atleti start to find themselves. They were finally able to find their footing. They're able to start holding the ball off. They're able to slow things down. It's ironic to say that because it's a team that everyone expects them to go on transition. They're one of the best counterattacking teams in European football. And it ends up being a major problem for them in terms of creation of opportunities. Now, they're able to corner Real Madrid, but they really didn't cause a lot of discomfort in front of Thibaut Courtois' goal at that stage. Now, that stage is a very short stage. It's a very short period of time. Why do I say that? Because in the 31st minute, Julian Alvarez says, okay, fine, I take things on my own hands. But it's interesting to look at one little caveat in Julian Alvarez's goal. Obviously, you look at everything that he does, the understanding of time and space, knowing how to create that space, knowing how to generate it, and also take full advantage of it, and where he placed the ball was amazing. Maybe the best goal out of the three on the evening, maybe. But when you look at what he was capable of doing, alongside Javi Galan, because Javi Galan's there, he's there, he positions himself good enough to say, well, if I make the overlap, they have to take care of me. If I cut inside, someone has to go with me. So he stays there, and the defense kind of, all right, cool. Which ends up helping Julian Alvarez end up in a 1v1 over on that near side. And, of course, that ends up being a goal. Magnificent goal, may I add. Great individual play by Julian Alvarez, who's having one of the best starts in not just this season, but in Atletico Madrid history. He now has the second best performance or second best productivity for a player in their first season at Atletico Madrid. He just surpassed Luis Suarez. Remember that first season, Suarez came over from Barcelona. He comes in, scores 21 goals, and Atletico Madrid win the league title. He only needs to beat out a former River Plate alum in Radamel Falcao, who his first season in 2011, 2012, he ends up scoring a grand total of 36 goals in all competition. Julian Alvarez now has 22. We'll see how far he does get. He could get there. We'll see how that ends up playing out. That in combination with a Madrid team that once they were up 1-0 and once they were defending well and once Atleti weren't really generating a lot of things, they became complacent. They became, even to a certain extent in certain areas, somniferous. They went to sleep. But they knew that that was still good enough. It was still good enough to block, to kind of like when you're seeing a fight in the final rounds and the boxer knows that all he has to do is just not get knocked out. He's basically boop, 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 blocking punches, moving around, doing that. That was what Real Madrid were doing. Alvarez comes through, changes the game around a bit. Now the wind is at Atleti's sails. They begin to go. They begin to attack. They begin to show more aggressiveness. And it transfers over to the second half. Until, against the run of play, which Real Madrid is infamous for, they're able to score off of Brahim Diaz. Brahim Diaz, another instance where you see a similar type of play. Maybe not as a fantastic type of finish, but you still got to give him credit because of where he placed that ball and who he placed it through. Initially, when you see that play, there's a great deal of triangulation going on. It was wonderful to see the run. I mean, if you look at that goal again, it's great to see all of the players that are running off the ball. If you're not paying attention if you're paying attention to the ball, you kind of miss that. But if you start looking at how Brahim Diaz and how Tchouaméni and how Camavinga are all moving that ball around and how they're rotating around in order to free themselves, in order to get some movement, Mendy as well, I'm sorry. It was interesting to see. That said, once Atleti were able to shift over, Jose Maria Jimenez comes in right in front, man to man. You would think, okay, not much is going to happen here. Either he drops the ball back, or he ends up losing it, or he tries to send a wild cross, or it bounces off a defender. You had a lot of options, a lot of opportunities, but then the ones you thought would end up coming to fruition wasn't what ended up happening. Just a bit of a shimmy, bit of a move, bit of a fake by Brahim Diaz. Jose Maria Jimenez bites, and not only that, he ends up collapsing. His leg gives out, falls down, enough space to be able to create what ends up being the game winner. And that ends up being what the difference ends up being created for Real Madrid going into the return leg over at the Metropolitano in the next match day for Champions League. The last few minutes, there really wasn't much to talk about. It was a Madrid that kind of took that same approach, but this time against an Atleti that said, well, let's try and minimize our damage. Let's try and cut our losses. Let's try and not get scored on once again. Of course, they learned their lesson off of a goal that ends up coming off the run of play. They don't want to happen a second time. They know there's still 90 minutes left. They're going back home. We'll see how things are. Not only that, they also have to focus on this weekend and a very rough patch of matches for Atletico Madrid, as they, obviously, Champions League is a high priority for them, but they also have to think about what else is going on in the league race. They want to keep pace with Barcelona, as Real Madrid are behind them right now in the league table. They know that they have to focus on several other things, but coming back to the return leg, they know that it will be a very important one, and they don't want to miss out on what could be a great opportunity for them. Can they be able to dethrone Real Madrid? Well, I've said it before. If there is a team that could do it, it could be Atletico Madrid. It's a very short list of teams that could beat Real Madrid at this time in the Champions League. Atletico Madrid is on that very short list. Now, does that mean that they're going to beat them? Well, that's still left to be seen. We shall see very soon. Guys, make sure you subscribe, you like, you do everything you need to do here. It would be greatly appreciated as we want to start getting close to making this more of a full-time thing, and I hope that you can help out with just a little click, a subscribe, just to get the algorithm going this way, all right? Talk to you guys later. Ciao.